بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا الكريم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على هديهم إلى يوم الدين. أما بعد، فلعلنا يا إخوة نختم اليوم بهذا الدرس دورتنا في علوم الحديث، وسنتكلم إن شاء الله عز وجل عن الحديث الضعيف.
Okay, the Shaykh began by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sending his peace and blessings on the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he mentioned that today is going to be the last lecture in the series of our course on Hadith. And today's topic is the Hadith da'if, the weak Hadith.
تقدم معنا يا إخوة أن الحديث باعتبار القبول والرد. الحديث باعتبار القبول والرد ينقسم إلى قسمين: الحديث المقبول والمردود. وتقدم أيضا أن المقبول ينقسم إلى الصحيح والحسن، وأن الصحيح منه صحيح لذاته ومنه صحيح لغيره، وأن الحسن منه حسن لذاته ومنه حسن لغيره. ودرسنا معنى هذا كله في الدروس التي مضت، واليوم إن شاء الله عز وجل نتكلم عن الحديث المردود وبالأخص الضعيف.
So today we'll be speaking about the grading of a hadith, whether we regard the hadith to be a sahih hadith or a da'if hadith, whether we accept the hadith or we reject the authenticity of this hadith. And as the Shaykh has mentioned, when it comes to this, we divide that into two parts: a hadith which is accepted, which is authentic, and a hadith which is rejected, which we consider to be not authentic. The authentic hadith, as you may have studied previously, is divided up into two parts. One being a sahih hadith, and that goes on to being sahih li dhatihi and sahih li ghayrihi, and hasan. Hasan also goes into hasan li dhatihi and hasan li ghayrihi. So this we have spoken about that previously. However, today we'll be discussing in particular the rejected ahadith, the hadith that we don't use, that we reject, and in particular the da'if hadith.
الحديث المردود يا إخوة هو ما لم يترجح صدق المخبر به، ما لم يترجح صدق المخبر به، بمعنى أن الذي أخبر به لم يترجح لنا صدقه، وبالتالي يرد ولا يقبل. وأما الحديث المقبول فهو ما ترجح صدق المخبر به، ولذلك احتججنا به وأخذنا به وعملنا به. المردود هذا الذي لم يترجح صدق المخبر به، هذا يشمل الضعيف بشتى أنواع ودرجات الضعف، ويشمل كذلك الموضوع اللي هو الحديث المكذوب على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم.
Okay, so what we'll be taking today, as we said, are the hadith that are completely rejected, and that's known as mardud, or as being rejected. So what does it mean when we say that a hadith is rejected or not accepted or not authentic? It means that we don't use the information that comes with it as an evidence. We don't use it as an evidence. We don't use it in our religion as an evidence to go back to and try to have an opinion that is correct by using these hadith. That's opposite to the hadith that come in a hadith that is maqbool, a hadith that is accepted. A hadith that is accepted, we use that hadith as to form opinions and to form ideas and to make rulings and verdicts in regards to our religion. However, when it comes to a hadith that is rejected, we don't use the information that's come in them because they are rejected, either because it's da'if, and da'if here meaning weak, or that it's mawdu', meaning that it's makdhub, it's someone has actually lied against the Prophet ﷺ in this hadith. So these are the two reasons why we actually reject hadith. We either reject it because something has gone wrong in its chain of narrators, that we say that now this has made it a weak hadith, or because we believe that the hadith has been that somebody has lied against the Prophet ﷺ in narrating this hadith.
سنتكلم يا إخوة في هذا الدرس إن شاء الله عن الضعيف. الضعيف في لغة العرب مأخوذ من الضعف، والضعف هو ضد القوة. وأما في اصطلاح المحدثين فهو هذا الضعيف هو ما لم يجمع شروط القبول، هو الحديث الذي لم يجمع شروط القبول، هذا يسمى ضعيف. ولقائل أن يقول: ما هي شروط القبول يا شيخ؟ شروط القبول يا إخوة 6. شروط القبول هذه 6. شروط القبول هي نفس شروط الصحة 5 زائد شرط سادس. فعندنا شروط القبول: 1 اتصال الإسناد، ومعنى اتصال الإسناد أن يسلم الإسناد من أي سقط بحيث يكون كل راوي قد سمع الحديث ممن فوقه. والشرط الثاني عدالة الرواة، بأن يكون كل راوي من رواة الإسناد عدل، يعني تقي وصاحب مروءة. والشرط الثالث ضبط الرواة، يعني حفظ الرواة، أن يكون كل راوي من رواة الإسناد عنده حفظ، سواء كان حفظ تام وحديثه يسمى الصحيح، أو حفظ أخف قليلا وحديثه يسمى الحسن. والشرط الرابع يا إخوة عدم الشذوذ، بمعنى أن لا يخالف رواية الأولى، أن لا يخالف رواية الأولى. والشرط الخامس عدم العلة القادحة، يعني أن لا يوجد في الحديث علة سبب خفي يقدح في صحته مع أن ظاهره السلام. هذه الشروط هي التي أخذناها في شروط الحديث الصحيح، وتسمى شروط الصحة. شروط الصحة. لكن شروط القبول ليست هي شروط الصحة فقط، هي شروط الصحة 5 زائد يا إخوة شرط سادس، وهو وجود العاضد عند الحاجة إليه، يعني وجود المقوي الذي يقوي الحديث عند الحاجة إليه. ومتى نحتاج المقوي؟ إذا كان الحديث ضعيف. وذكرنا هذا الشرط لسبب يا إخوة، وهو أن لكي يدخل معنا في التعريف الحسن لغيره، فإن الحسن لغيره هو في الأصل ضعيف، لكن وجد العاضد فانتقل من درجة الضعف إلى درجة الحسن. فلا بد أن نذكر هذا الشرط. فالحديث الذي لم يجمع هذه الشروط القبول بفقد شرط أو أكثر، هذا يسمى ضعيف في اصطلاح المحدثين.
So the meaning of a ضعيف hadith is that it hasn't reached the level, or it hasn't fulfilled the conditions of it being a correct hadith, an accepted hadith. So it hasn't completed the conditions. It doesn't fulfill the conditions for it to be an accepted hadith. So you may ask, what is an accepted hadith? What are the conditions of it being an accepted hadith, or a hadith that we can use, what is known as a hadith maqbool, or an authentic hadith? What are those conditions? Well, there are 6 conditions all up, and the first 5 conditions are actually the same conditions that are used for a Saheeh or Hasan hadith. They're the same 5 conditions. But the Sheikh mentioned that not just because they may all these hadith have a particular hadith may have these 5 conditions, it doesn't necessarily mean that they fit into it being sahih. For a hadith to be actually accepted, there is also a 6th condition that makes it accepted. So there's also a 6th condition. So for a hadith just to be accepted, there are actually 6 conditions. The 5 conditions of which make it sahih are also involved in that as well, are also part of those conditions. So we're going to just recap again on exactly what those 5 conditions are. The first being is that the chain of narrators are completely connected. There is no gap in the chain of narrators, meaning that the person that the person has narrated off in the chain of narrators is all the way connected all the way to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and then the Sahaba, meaning that there's no gap in between, meaning a person hasn't lived in one era and he's narrated of somebody who's lived, for example, 200 years before he's lived. No, there's a proper chain of narrators, and we know that they met each other, and we've known that those chain of narrators have come into contact with each other, so we know that those people, so we know that that chain now has been fully connected. The second is that we know about the character of those actual narrators, that we know that they are people of taqwa, that we know there are people of good character, that we know that there are people of iman, and they're from the salihin, they're from the righteous people, that they're known for their adl and having good character and taqwa and being God-fearing people, that their character is good, and that they're from the believers. So that's the second condition. The third condition is that we know about their memory, that we find that they have a strong memory, that they're not forgetful, that they don't forget, or towards the end of their life they started to forget things. No, we find that they have a very good memory and they haven't forgotten. So they're reliable when it comes to narrating things off memory. The fourth thing is that there are no irregularities or in the chain of narrators. There's nothing there that make it irregular. The fifth being as well. هذا يا شيخ. الرابع لا الخامس.
عدم العلة القادحة. عدم وجود العلة القادحة.
Anyway, so inside the fifth being that there's nothing inside the hadith that can contradict other hadith. For example, you may find that a person may have mixed the hadith up. When you look at another hadith, you may find that that person has actually mixed that hadith up with something else. So, the fifth condition is when you look at the hadith itself, you realize that the hadith is actually what is known as it is sound, it is authentic, it hasn't been mixed up, and things haven't been added to it from other narrators, and that it actually goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, and it doesn't contradict things. And so they're the five things that actually make a hadith sahih. As for the sixth thing, is that it has to have something, it has to have the presence of strength in it, meaning that the thing that makes it strong, a strong hadith, has to be there for it to be used as an evidence.
تريد أن تزيد عليها وجود العاضد؟
أيوه.
طبعا يا إخوة، نحن اشترطنا هذا الشرط وقلنا أن وجود العاضد عند الحاجة إليه شرط من شروط القبول. لماذا؟ لأن الضعيف الذي لم يشتد ضعفه لم يعني يصل إلى درجة شدة الضعف، هذا الضعيف ضعف يسير، لو جاء متابع أو جاء له شاهد يقويه يتقوى، ينتقل من الضعف إلى الحسن ويسمى حسنا لغيره، والحسن لغيره من المقبول الذي يحتج به وليس من المردود الذي لا يحتج به. وبالتالي اشترطنا هذا الشرط ولا بد من التنصيص عليه، ولذلك شروط القبول هي شروط الصحة الخمسة زائد هذا الشرط، وإنما اشترطناه لكي ندخل في المقبول الحسن لغيره.
So the reason why the Shaykh has mentioned is that this sixth condition is put there is so it can go from it being a da'if hadith to a hadith that is hasan li ghayrihi, and that could be for many different reasons. And they put that extra there not to keep it in the camp of da'if, but to actually move it over because it is something that makes it authentic enough to take it out of it being da'if and put it into the category of being hasan li ghayrihi.
طبعا يا إخوة، إذا نظرتم في هذه الشروط تبين لكم كثرة أنواع الضعيف، وأن الحديث الضعيف له أنواع كثيرة، وقد أوصلها بعض العلماء إلى 49 نوع كما ذكر ذلك ابن الصلاح عن ابن حبان رحمه الله. وبعض العلماء أوصلها إلى أكثر من 49 نوع، والسبب يعلم ويتصور إذا علمتم أن الحديث إذا فقد شرط واحد كان مردود وضعيف، وإذا فقد الشرط الثاني كان مردود وضعيف، وإذا فقد الشرط الثالث كان ضعيف، إذا فقد الأول مع الثاني ضعيف، إذا فقد الأول مع الثالث ضعيف، إذا فقد الأول مع الرابع ضعيف. بذلك تتصورون يا إخوة أن الضعف له أنواع كثيرة، وأن الحديث ضعيف له أنواع كثيرة، لكن في الجملة ترجع أسباب الضعف، نقول هنا أسباب الضعف أو أسباب الرد، ترجع في الجملة يا إخوة إلى 3 أسباب. السبب الأول من أسباب ضعف الحديث ورد الحديث الانقطاع في الإسناد، والسبب الثاني الطعن في الراوي، والسبب الثالث وجود العلة القادحة. فضعف الحديث ورد الحديث لا يخرج عن أحد هذه الأسباب الثلاثة.
So the Shaykh mentions that the scholars have categorized the weak hadith into many different categories. Ibn Hibban mentioned that there's 49 different categories of a hadith being weak. For different reasons, it's been made da'if. And so, for example, one of those reasons, and they all have their own particular names and titles. So, for example, a hadith will be da'if because the first condition of it being accepted isn't met. And that will be given a particular title and a category of weakness. And then another category of weakness is because perhaps the first condition and the second condition are not met. So that's given a particular title. And some hadith, it could be because the first condition and the third condition are not met. So that's been given a category, a title inside a particular category of this hadith being weak or considered da'if. So there are many reasons why a hadith can be considered as weak, according to the being rejected from those, or going against those 6 conditions that the Shaykh mentioned earlier. However, we can summarize the reasons of a hadith being rejected into 3 different categories, or 3 different reasons why a scholar will consider a hadith to be weak. The first reason for a scholar may reject it is because the hadith, the chain of narrators don't connect. Meaning the chain of narrators together do not meet and they don't connect. So there's some sort of a break in the chain of narrators. There's gaps missing in the chain of narrators. Secondly, there could be something about the particular narrator that people have said about him, or there's something that brings into question his integrity, whether it be his memory or his character. And third, being that there's something wrong with the hadith itself. There's something wrong with the particular hadith in the way that it has come to make it questionable.
المردود يا إخوة بسبب الانقطاع في الإسناد، سبب رده وسبب ضعفه عدم اتصال الإسناد. فهناك سقط في الإسناد، ليس هناك كل راوي أخذ الحديث ممن فوقه إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. والمردود بسبب الانقطاع في الإسناد ينقسم عند علماء الحديث إلى 5 أقسام. ينقسم إلى 5 أقسام. ينقسم يا إخوة أولا شيء يسمى بالمعلق، وأيضا المرسل، وأيضا المعضل والمنقطع والمدلس. هذه أنواع من أنواع الحديث الضعيف، المعلق والمرسل والمعضل والمنقطع والمدلس. سبب ردها وسبب ضعفها هو الانقطاع في الإسناد وعدم اتصال الإسناد. وكل نوع من هذه الأنواع يا إخوة يعتبر نوع حديثي مستقل، له أحكامه وله تعريفه، وليس هذا محل بسط الكلام في كل نوع.
Okay, and so the scholars have categorized the breaking of the chain And so the Sheikh mentioned this at first, what does it mean for the chain to be broken, the chain of narrators to be broken? And what he was mentioning is that there is a break or a gap or something that cuts off between the person that's narrating and the person that he's narrating from, for whatever reason, which I mentioned, which are going to be mentioned. So there's something, when it comes to those chain of narrators and those people that follow all the way back to the Prophet ﷺ, that there's something that makes it cut off. Something gets cut off between them and the Prophet ﷺ. So the Shaykh mentioned that there are 5 different reasons or 5 different categories to that. The first one being known as mu'allaq. The second one being mursal. The third being, what's this? Mu'dal. The third being muqatta', and the fifth being mudallas.
يعني مثلا يا إخوة المرسل حتى تدركون أن سبب الضعف فيه الانقطاع في الإسناد. المرسل ما هو؟ المرسل باختصار شديد هو ما رفعه التابع إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. ما رفعه التابع إلى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. يأتي تابعي مثلا الحسن البصري رحمه الله يقول قال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كذا وكذا. هذا لا يقبل عند علماء الحديث. لماذا؟ لأن الحسن البصري لم يلقى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، فهو تابعي، فالإسناد فيه انقطاع لم يتصل. هذا يسمى مرسل يا أخو. هذا حتى تتصوروا يعني سبب الانقطاع في الإسناد.
So to give a short explanation, a really short explanation of an example of one of these 5 is, for example, a classification which is known as mursal. So an example of mursal is, for example, one of the tabi'een. And we know the tabi'een are those people that came and lived after or lived after the Sahaba. They may have met the Sahaba, but they didn't meet the Prophet ﷺ. And so, for example, you may have a saying from one of the tabi'een who say, for example, the Prophet ﷺ said. For example, Hassan al-Basri. Hassan al-Basri may be narrated that he said, the Prophet ﷺ says or has said. But we know that Hassan al-Basri never met the Prophet ﷺ. He wasn't from the Sahaba. He came from the generation after the Sahaba. So we know that it's impossible for him to have heard anything from the Prophet ﷺ because he didn't live in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. And we know that and we know from the narration that he hasn't mentioned the name of the companion who actually said this. So this is something that we would call as mursal. There's a cut in the narration. We know that he didn't live in the time of Prophet ﷺ, nor did he mention the name of a Sahabi that said that he heard it from the Prophet ﷺ. So that would make this hadith, for example, under the category of mursal, because we know that the tabi' has mentioned something, but we know that he hasn't mentioned the name of the Sahabi that narrated it. So then that would come under this particular category.
هذا السبب الأول يا أخوة من أسباب الرد والضعف، وهو الانقطاع في الإسناد. السبب الثاني من أسباب ضعف الحديث ورد الحديث الطعن في الراوي. والمقصود بالطعن في الراوي القدح فيه، سواء كان هذا القدح وهذا الطعن في جانب العدالة أو في جانب الضبط. فهذا له أنواع كثيرة. يعني مثلا الطعن في الراوي في جانب العدالة، مثلا إذا كان الراوي كذاب، هذا حديثه مردود. لماذا؟ لأنه كذاب ويسمى حديثه عند العلماء بالموضوع. إذا كان الراوي متهم بالكذب معناه أنه لم يكذب على النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، ولكن يكذب في حديث الناس، لم يكذب في حديث النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. هذا يسمى ابن حجر رحمه الله حديثه بأنه متروك. مثلا إذا كان الراوي فاسق، هذا طعن في الراوي، يقبل حديثه، لا يقبل حديثه عفوا ويرد. قد يكون الطعن في الراوي في جانب الضبط اللي هو الحفظ، فإذا كان الراوي مثلا سيء الحفظ أو فاحش الغلط أو شديد الغفلة، هذا سبب من أسباب الرد وضعف الحديث. فالمقصود أن الطعن في الراوي سواء كان في جانب العدالة أو في جانب الضبط سبب من أسباب رد الحديث وضعف الحديث.
So another reason for a hadith to be rejected or considered not to be worthy is a reason for that would be that something has been said about the actual narrator himself. That there's something about the narrator himself that renders that hadith to be rejected or weak. And we can divide those into two. The first being is known as adala, and that is because there is something about the particular narrator that makes him rejected. For example, he's not a practicing person. For example, he's known for his fisq, or for being an evil person, or not having taqwa, or not being a righteous person. So his hadith there would be rejected because of that. Or the second reason is he's known for being a liar, for example. هذا هو شيخ السبب الثاني إنه
أيوة ممكن يكون كذاب وبالتالي حديث يكون مردود.
أيوة. So the second reason is because he could be known to be a liar, somebody who lies, and he's not a truthful person, and he plays around with words, and he's just not an honest person. And السبب الثالث هو
يعني هذه أمثلة يا شيخ تعتبر هي ليست حصر على سبيل الحصر. جانب العدالة قد يكون كذب، قد يكون اتهام بالكذب، قد يكون فسق، قد يكون بدعة.
أيوة.
قد يكون يعني
أيوة.
صغير في السن. صبي لم يبلغ.
أيوة. So the Sheikh is mentioning it's not just those three that he mentioned. It could be for many different reasons. For example, that makes that person fall under that category. So it could be example that he was a person from Ahl al-Bid'ah, or he engaged in Bid'ah, or at the time when he narrated that hadith, he was very young in age, for example. So it's not just three, but it could be many different reasons that would take him, that would put him into this particular category. The second thing or reason why a hadith may be rejected from a person in regards to the particular narrator himself is because there may be something wrong in regards to the way that he narrates the hadith. For example, he may have a poor memory, or he may forget. Or, for example, as the Sheikh mentioned, shadid al-ghafla. For example, he just takes off anyone, or he just narrates whatever he hears, or he's not very accurate when he does narrate, or he has shortcomings when he narrates hadith. So, he doesn't pay attention carefully to the way that he narrates the hadith and the wording of the hadith. He doesn't memorize well, or he has a weak memory, or he just takes any type of narration. So that could be another reason why a person, in regards to the narrator himself, being rejected as a narrator and making a hadith weak.
هذا يا إخوة السبب الثاني، الطعن في الراوي. السبب الثالث من أسباب رد الحديث، من أسباب ضعف الحديث، هو وجود العلة القادحة. وجود العلة القادحة، والمقصود بوجود العلة القادحة أن يوجد في الحديث سبب خفي غير ظاهر يقدح في صحة الحديث، مع أن ظاهر الحديث السلامة. يظهر للإنسان أن هذا الحديث ما شاء الله سليم، ما في خلاص يعني مقبول، لكن يوجد فيه سبب خفي يقدح فيه. فهذا السبب من أسباب رد الحديث. والمردود بسبب وجود العلة القادحة له أنواع عديدة. منها يا إخوة، منها مثلا المعل أو المضطرب أو المقلوب أو المدرج، ويمكن أن يدخل في ذلك الشاذ والمنكر. فهذه الأنواع كلها أنواع مردودة لا تقبل. ليه؟ لأن يا إخوة أن فيها علة تقدح فيها، مع أن ظاهرها السلامة. قد تكون علة خفية لا تظهر إلا للنقاد، إلا للمعتنين بالحديث، فيسمى معل. قد يكون يا إخوة العلة اضطراب، تأتي روايات مختلفة متساوية في القوة، لا يمكن الجمع بينها ولا الترجيح، وهي متعارضة، هذا يسمى اضطراب. قد يكون العلة قلب، ويسمى الحديث عندئذ مقلوب. والقلب يعني إبدال شيء بشيء، سواء كان في الإسناد أو كان في المتن. كذلك يا إخوة إدراج، قد تكون العلة خفية إدراج، يدخل في كلام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما ليس منه، ويروى على أنه من كلام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم، والحقيقة هذا الكلام ليس من كلام النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. إذن من أسباب رد الحديث وجود العلة القادحة، والعلة القادحة لها صور كثيرة وأنواع كثيرة.
Okay, so the third reason is that there could be something in the hadith itself, whether it be the wording of the hadith or in the chain of narrators, that actually that make it weak or make it or that spoil it for one reason or another. And those can be divided up. Those can be divided up into three. One is being the first one here being mudraj, is that, for example, an example of that is that something has been put into the hadith. Hadith has come, and it's come many different times in many different narrations. But in one particular hadith, there is a word in it, a sentence or a statement that goes back to the Prophet ﷺ, which is not found in any other hadith. So something has been added into the hadith that's not recognized, that makes it sort of, that sort of spoils that hadith. It makes it look like that it's been added into the hadith because it seems to contradict everything else. There's other narrations that have come to us. A second one is that it could have been swapped. Something could have been mixed up, like a saying of the particular hadith could have been flipped around. It's like it may, in the way the hadith was stated. When you compare it to every other hadith that's also come, there is something in that hadith that completely contradicts it, and it seems like the person that was narrating the hadith has actually mixed something up in the hadith. And ممكن نستخدم مثال 7 تحت ذيل.
نعم.
So the Sheikh was mentioning before, before the lesson. For example, a particular example of that is on the Day of Judgment, we know that there are 7 people under the shade of Allah, the shade of the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that will be guarded and protected when there is no shade except for the shade of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of those people is a person who would give so secretively with his right hand that his left hand wouldn't know what his right hand was giving. However, and that has come in many different hadiths that has come, that narration. However, it's come in one narration that on that day, the man that has given with his left hand, or the man that gives, until the man that's given with his left hand, his right hand will not know what he has given. So it seems that this particular hadith it's come in the same wording as everything else, except that in a particular sentence or a particular part of it, it seems that the person that was narrating it has accidentally flipped it around. And instead of saying his left hand doesn't know what his right hand has given, he's actually said his right hand doesn't know what his left hand has given. So that's an example of the hadith being accidentally switched and swapped around by the mistake of the person that's narrating it. And the third okay.
يعني يا إخوة هذه أمثلة على الأنواع التي وجدت فيها إلا قادحة مع أن الظاهر منها السلامة. فهي أنواع، أنتم تلاحظون الآن يا إخوة أن الحديث المردود أو الحديث الضعيف له أنواع كثيرة، وأن هذه الأنواع سبب ضعفها لا يخرج عن أحد 3 أسباب: الانقطاع في الإسناد أو الطعن في الراوي أو وجود العلة القادحة. ولعل يا إخوة في المستقبل نأخذ دورة كاملة عن أنواع الضعيف وأنواع المردود، لكن أهم شيء أن الإنسان يضبط هذه الدورة ويتقن هذه الدورة ويدرسها جيدا حتى ينتقل بعد ذلك إلى تفاصيل هذه الأنواع، لأن هذه الأنواع مبنية على ما سبق من فهمك واستيعابك لشروط الصحيح. فيا إخوة بهذا نكون قد أخذنا تعريف الضعيف والمردود، وأخذنا أيضا أسباب الرد وأسباب الضعف، وتبقى مسألة أخيرة هي ما حكم الضعيف؟ ما حكمه؟ الضعيف يا إخوة كما تقدم أنه يدخل ضمن المردود، بمعنى أنه لا يحتج به ولا يعمل به لا في العقائد ولا في الأحكام، وهذا هو حكم الضعيف. ولذلك إذا جاءنا حديث ضعيف نحن لا نعمل به، لا نبني عليه عبادة ولا نبني عليه معاملة، وإن كان الأصل في المعاملات الإباحة. فهذا يا إخوة باختصار ما يتعلق بالحديث الضعيف، وأسأل الله عز وجل للجميع التوفيق والسداد. أتمنى أن الإخوة يكونوا قد استفادوا من هذه الدورة، ويكونوا قد يعني راجعوا وضبطوا هذه المعلومات. فإن علم الحديث يا إخوة، علم الحديث علم صعب، ليس بعلم سهل، ويحتاج إلى فهم، ويحتاج إلى دراسته على شيخ. لعلك يا شيخ تترجم الآن ونكون بعد
generally speaking, the Sheikh just mentioned that this is in short what we have studied and taken in regards to a hadith that is accepted. This is generally speaking in the course generally, a hadith that has been that's accepted, which is known as authentic, and a hadith that is rejected or that is considered weak or unauthentic unauthentic. And that's in in short some of the the reasons why hadith, the knowledge of hadith and the sciences of hadith. The Shaykh did mention that what does it mean for a hadith to be mardud, for a hadith to be rejected or considered not authentic or unauthentic or to be considered weak? What does that mean? It means that it's not allowed to be used as an evidence, not in aqidah and not in the ahkam. What does it mean by ahkam? Aqidah we know, like in the things that you're to believe in and the things that it's compulsory on every Muslim to believe in. And in ahkam, meaning the things that you do as a worshipper, the way that you pray, for example, the way that you may worship Allah, the way that you make adhkar, anything like that, those things cannot be accepted and used as a proof in giving, when teaching Muslims or teaching Muslims the religion of Islam. They are completely rejected and they can't be used as a proof. And that's the whole reason why we have this category of weak hadith, or a hadith that is rejected, or a hadith that is weak, because we don't want people using these things as a proof or as an evidence when it comes to the belief of a Muslim, the things that a Muslim must believe in, or the things that a Muslim must do, or the things that Muslims should do when they're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's generally what is meant by a hadith that is mardud, a hadith that is rejected or not authentic. So the Shaykh also mentioned in closing, he said that this is a short summary, and this course that you've taken is a short summary of the study of hadith, the study of the sciences of hadith. And he mentioned that the study of the sciences of hadith is a knowledge that is extremely difficult. It's difficult. It does take a lot of effort and does take a lot of time. And it's something that a person should study with a sheikh and take regular lessons and study in it and to strengthen them in their study and their understanding of the sciences of hadith.
في ختام هذه الدورة يا إخوة، أشكر الله سبحانه وتعالى على ما وفق وأنعم وتفضل. وكما قال الصحابة رضي الله عنهم: والله لولا الله ما اهتدينا ولا صمنا ولا صلينا. وأنا أقول والله لولا الله ما تعلمنا ولا علمنا. والتوفيق بيد الله تبارك وتعالى، والفضل لله وحده، هو الموفق أولا وآخرا، والحمد لله على ذلك أولا وآخرا وظاهرا وباطنا. ويا إخوة، دائما الإنسان في مثل هذه المقامات يتذكر منة الله عز وجل عليه ونعمة الله عليه، أن الله عز وجل هو الذي وفقه للاستقامة، وأن الله عز وجل هو الذي وفقه لطلب العلم الشرعي. ونحمد الله عز وجل على ختام هذه الدورة، وأسأل الله عز وجل أن تكون بداية خير، وأن الدورات في المستقبل في علم الحديث تأتي بإذن الله عز وجل. ويا إخوة، إن كان لي من وصية ففي أمرين يا إخوة. الأمر الأول تقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى، تقوى الله سبحانه وتعالى، فهي وصية الله عز وجل للأولين والآخرين، لكل الأقوام السابقين واللاحقين. والله يقول: ولقد وصينا الذين أوتوا الكتاب من قبلكم وإياكم أن اتقوا الله. فالإنسان يكون دائما مع الله، يقول بالكلام الذي يرضي الله، ويفعل الفعل الذي يرضي الله، ويتجنب قدر المستطاع كل ما يسخط الله ويغضب الله عز وجل. هذه الوصية الأولى. الوصية الثانية يا إخوة الاستمرار في طلب العلم وعدم الانقطاع والثبات. الآن يا إخوة كل الناس، كل طلاب العلم يطلبون العلم ممكن بحماس، بقوة، بزيادة إرهاق نفس في البداية، لكن ينقطعون بعد ذلك. والعبرة ليست بالقوة في البداية، العبرة بالثبات والاستمرار. وكما قيل لكل في شأو العلا وثبات، ولكن عزيز في الرجال ثبات. يعني كل واحد في شأو العلا يريد أن يصل إلى أعلى درجة وأرفع درجة، وثبات، يثب وثبة بعد وثبة، وركضة بعد ركضة، وجرية بعد جرية، لكن عزيز يعني قليل في الرجال الثبات. فالله يا إخوة في الثبات على طلب العلم، وهذا هو الذي ينفع الإنسان في الآخرة، والذي يبقى له إذا مات وانفض الناس عنه في القبر. ولا أنسى أن أشكر بعد شكر الله سبحانه وتعالى القائمين على هذه الأكاديمية 101 Vision، الدكتور يوسف عبد الجبار، والأستاذ بلال، والأستاذ جميل، والأستاذ مايكل. أشكرهم جميعا على إتاحة هذه الفرصة، وأسأل الله عز وجل الجميع التوفيق والسداد والإخلاص في القول والعمل. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه ومن سار على هديهم إلى يوم الدين. وأستودعكم الله، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
My apologies, the Sheikh has spoken a lot, and I may have forgotten some of the things that he has mentioned, but he did say that he wants to finish the course by thanking all the brothers involved from the 101 Vision. And congratulating them. He also the Sheikh made dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it a success and makes it of benefit and rewards us for the work that we put in. The Sheikh, he also mentioned that seeking knowledge and making talab al-ilm is something that is from the success of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants to those who are successful, and it's something that's truly great, and it's of great benefit, and it shows that somebody is successful. The person that strives in the path of seeking knowledge. Also, the Sheikh mentioned that he wanted to give two pieces of advice. One being, we all should have the taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that we all should have taqwa, and this will engage us and help us in seeking knowledge and keeping us steadfast and firm on our religion, and it will open up many doors for us in knowledge and seeking knowledge. So the first the piece of advice, the nasiha he gave, was to have the taqwa of Allah. The second thing is that the Sheikh mentioned is to continue with the seeking of knowledge, to be always continue and not break it off, to continuously seek knowledge and to be firm and to have steadfastness upon seeking knowledge. The Sheikh mentioned that the izzah of a person, the honor of the person, is having ithbat, being steadfast and being upon the knowledge and continuing with it and staying upon it. The Sheikh mentioned that you might find a lot of students of knowledge, they've got a lot of zeal and a lot of, they're very encouraged, and they've got a lot of energy at the beginning, and then after some time they fall off. But seeking knowledge is something that a person must continue with throughout his life. That he should always continue with it and stay firm and steadfast upon that, and continue with that. And that's from being a man. That's from izzah and having honor. Is staying firm and staying firm upon that knowledge and staying firm upon that path that you have taken, especially that in seeking knowledge. And so the Sheikh, again, my apologies, I may have forgotten or left something out, but the Sheikh mentioned, and he made dua for all of us, and he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us success and yeah, and that's it. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.